Hi, Lori.
Morning.
How are you?
My sister-in-law has an underlying.
Good. I got something to show you, Brent.
Okay.
Since it involves you.
Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Ruth gave me some books to study.
Okay.
Here's one.
I couldn't figure
out.
There's one. There's another one. You recognize them?
I recognize a few of them, yeah. How about that?
Quaker.
And here's the last one that I'll inflict upon you. Wilmer Cooper's book.
Yeah. Good.
I tell you, good books, but unfortunately, it's also a sad aspect in that Ruth is trying to clear out a lot of her stuff. But, you know, that's okay too.
Say hi. Hi. That's Chip. If Chip talks more, the camera will switch to follow him.
Oh, it's okay.
See?
I'm thinking there are 3 sides.
Interesting.
Yeah.
5, 12, and 19. Valley Mills, I think, is resisting on the 19.
It's really a cool gadget. And the sound is good here.
Yeah.
Much better than it was.
Yeah.
It's echoey here.
Well, we'll tweak it some as we learn how this device works.
And where's my kids?
Her cousin face planted herself the other night and spent 3 hours in the emergency room. Emergency room.
Okay, that may give us a bit of a clue. I don't think in terms of dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say more.
And I'm also sent a message, but I haven't heard back.
Yes.
To the person.
There's John Hesselman and Steve Mills and Dale Dorrell.
Good morning.
Are you doing
Oh,
okay?
it kept going down. Was with the other.
No.
I'm awful tired.
Anyway.
Just got stitches and everything.
What can I do?
Nothing. Come visit sometime. Dan Berger.
Good morning. I think Chris is here too.
Chris.
She is.
Chris is there too.
Hey, Brent.
We're playing with this Al.
I just had an idea. A little music just for a few seconds to see how we need to have the volume adjusted with the owl. I mean, it's picking up everything really, really well.
Is this a little less boomy for those who are listening in?
Seems okay.
I said it was too boomy. Go ahead and play. Lynn's going to play and we'll test the volume.
If you want to hear Boomy, I'll go get on the drums.
Chip said he played drums.
They're right there.
No.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
See how the camera switched to where she is?
Wow.
It follows who's ever speaking.
Interesting.
So it's kind of an amazing gadget that we got. The sound is so much better, the microphones are better. And then if somebody in the room speaks, the camera slowly moves to where they are.
Panoramic view.
We had to get a lower table than the clerk's table because it just showed the tops of people's heads. But it was set.
We'd send up a glare.
Yeah, and Chip and I would send off even more glare than usual. Well, Steve, I saw you had a nice visit with Max and Jane.
We did. It was great to connect with them. We didn't have to drive all the way to North Carolina to see them. That was good.
Olympic medal.
Yeah, I've been following their Hoosier travels since they got to the state. And there was a picture of you all at McAllister's. Drinking sweet tea, I suppose, in honor of their Southern heritage now.
I think Max had lemonade tea, and I had ice water with lemon. And a big New Yorker sandwich, which was delicious.
What is a New Yorker? What's on it?
Everything, I think. Roast beef, ham, 2 or 3 other deli meats. So, really healthy. I did eat fruit alongside, so that balanced out.
Balanced. That's good. But
Good morning.
So when we look at the screen, we're seeing a picture of you in addition to the picture of the meeting house. The picture of you is on your...
oh, you mean the hat?
Yeah.
No, I turned off the video on my
that's
iPad.
the video on the iPad, okay.
Because don't need it now to show the whole room.
Right, okay. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out, so where did that come from? Okay.
Yeah. Put up on this pew, Nancy.
Yeah, he's telling her.
I'm getting everybody to sit up on the front pews because we can be seen better by the owl.
Oh. The owl.
Oh, okay.
See?
John and Betty, how Ruth Connell is getting along?
Quaker Haven has been borrowing Indiana Wesleyan's owl for board meetings.
Well, they're really good.
They are.
Hey, and John, how is Ruth Connell getting along?
She was, of course, we met at yearly meeting last week, Sunday, but the Sunday before, she was in pretty good shape.
Good.
Seemed to be, Ruth. I was worried that she would be depressed and stuff, and now she's decided, like you have to, that I can go on.
Good. Well, that's because the new camera stand, if you gotta set up close so people can pick us up.
It does look like an owl, doesn't it? It's really very kind of disconcerting, those big eyes looking at you.
Hey, Lynn. Lynn?
Yeah.
Did my cousin get a hold of you?
Yes, he got a hold of me, and I referred him to Norma since I won't be here, and I believe they have just walked out the door to get something out of her car, but I believe they have communicated about tuning the piano and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I thought he was offering a free thing, so, or he was offering to get that done, so.
He and Norma have talked about it, and it is in the works and all that, but she's the one that has more of the details than I do, since I'm gonna be gone next.
Well, I didn't know who to have him touch base with, but.
Yeah, she's coming back in, she can answer your question here in a little bit.
And I have your key, Dale.
Okay. Well, I'll pick it up on Friday morning, I suppose.
Okay.
Oh, it's funny.
I assume after he recorded it, he'll see this.
Mhm.
Now, one thing, just so you know, with this new camera and microphone system, if you whisper, it's so sensitive, we hear you.
Your car with the lights on, is that?
It'll go off.
Oh, they will? Oh, they did. Okay. Technology, know nothing about it.
She asked me about where to get the animals.
So does it pick up us whispering in here?
Yeah, correct. So that was from.
That's not turning quite much.
Well, Norma, Dale Doral had a question for you.
It was I had a rat to protect my arm. The part of the fold had slipped out. So
Wondered if cousin Chester got a hold of you.
Oh, yes, we had lots of communication. I'm getting the piano tuned and ready for him, and going to meet him on August the 6th so he can rehearse.
Yeah, he was.
All set.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.
Follow dust all around there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you
can sit out there if that's easier to see the screen. Wherever you want.
Don't tell me that.
Normally, you just have to sit on the front pews, though, for it to see you.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, the pews hide you.
Who? You? Are you in charge?
No, I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll sit back with the girls every time you shoot off a gun.
Okay.
Give you a command.
I'm not.
Well, we'll do the prelude. Lynn's got opening music, and then we'll do joys and concerns. Well, for joys and concerns, we'll want to hold Dan and Sylvia in the light as they travel. They should be almost to Nova Scotia now. Dave Mills wrote and said he was on Cape Cod heading back towards Florida. He went up there to scatter some of Jody's ashes, and he would join us if he could, depending on wireless at a rest stop where he was staying, and that didn't work out. So we have these friends who are traveling, so we'll want to hold them in the light. Dale, Dora, would you like to say anything about your mother's upcoming memorial service?
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. Was invited that since we weren't able to really do anything around the time of Mom's death, we wanted to take some time to just remember and celebrate her life, and that will be on Saturday morning, next Saturday morning at 10:30. There at the West Newton Meeting House. So hope to see some of you there. I think it will be a good celebration. The meeting meant a lot to her, and I think that went both ways. So, and we thank you for letting us do that.
And we will set up a Zoom link too for friends who are unable to come in person.
Well, I have a joy. Thankfully, Brandon, Keisha, and Drake have now had their first COVID shots. It wasn't easy. Had to wear them down, but they got them.
Well, you may notice that Nancy's not here today. Thursday night, we had a lot of company that day, and she decided to do just a little bit in her flower garden before she came in for the evening, though we had discussed her doing that before she came in for supper. But you know, Nancy can be rather strong-willed, so it was one of those, okay. And I sat down and was doing something inside, and I heard something, and it was Nancy faintly calling. She had tripped coming out of her flower garden and landed on her face on the sidewalk. So we spent 3 hours in the emergency room. Her glasses, she landed on one side of her face, and her glasses cut her eye right above her eye, almost to the bone. So she has 15 stitches and a black eye now, and gets to get a new pair of glasses, and is pretty bruised up. And it took a lot out of her, actually. She's pretty worn down, so she just decided she was gonna sleep in, but her balance is getting worse as time goes on, which they said it would, so could hold her in the light. She agreed to not go outside unless somebody is with her. So we'll see how long that lasts. Are there other joys or concerns to share before we go into worship? Well, we are in worship. Before we go deeper, let's hold these.
I'm glad to be back.
We're glad to have you back, Megan.
Lauren's talking, but he's muted.
I thought I was, am I muted now?
Oh, we can hear you now.
Sorry, I thought all right. Ruth gave me a copy of Brent Bill's book, Holy Silence, and it's a very good book. Excellent. And I recommend it to non-Quakers as well as Quakers. And I had a quick question. Brent, did you get reports from your publisher on sales of your books once in a while? Are they still selling?
Yeah, that book's in it. This is more of an announcement than a joy or whatever, but yeah, that book sold around 12,000 copies.
Is it still in print?
It's in another edition now, but it's still in print.
Well, I know you said it's more of an announcement, but if I could pick one sentence out of this book, you know, it would not be an announcement. It would be worshipful. Breathe deeply, put down the book. Think about the following query slowly. What are my silence signals?
Just to be clear, I meant that announcing sales figures felt like an announcement. I appreciate the quote from the book. The other night, Friday night, we were scheduled to take our daughter Laura out for her birthday. Wasn't sure if that was going to happen after the great fun Laura and I had at Franciscan Health with Nancy the night before. But earlier that day, on Friday, the remaining sibling of Nancy's first husband, Tom, had passed away, and they were holding memorial service. So she went to that, and they had a good visit. And then we went out to, and she still felt up to going out to dinner that night. Her eye hadn't turned black yet. And so we went out to dinner. We took Laura out for her birthday. And when I got there and we were all seated, of course, the server asked if we wanted something to drink besides water. which we did. And I asked for this summer drink that a friend of mine who's Italian taught me, which is very light and refreshing. And so I asked for it, and the server, Rachel, said, well, no, we're all out of that, I think. And I said, well, that just figures, you know, the way the past couple of days have been. And so she went, and then she came back, and she goes, well, we actually do have it. So they made one for me. And then later on during the meal, she asked if I wanted something else to drink when I finished that. And I said, yes, I know you have this wine that I like called the Pessimist, but you probably don't have that either. Teasing her about her earlier statement, she goes, well, we actually do. So I had a thing of Pessimist, and I thought about, at times, I can be pessimistic, kind of cynical at times. I'd like to analyze things, but ultimately, I look at things critically, I think, because I care so much about them. When I'm on our board of trustees for QVS or Wilmington College, I try and ask good questions and find out good information because those institutions are important to me. I think I'm ultimately hopeful as a person. And I was reminded, I've been thinking a lot about hope, and I'm always reminded of Hebrews 11, where it opens up, now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith we understand that the universe was formed by God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did, and by faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, Abel still speaks even though he is dead. And that section goes on and lists all these people who had faith and had hope in God. I mean, it's a long list. It just keeps going. And Rahab the prostitute, and it just goes on and on and on. Trying to talk about faith, and it's of things that were not seen. They hoped in this idea that God formed the universe, and basically that God is in control and over all. And I do believe that. I mean, in some ways, I stake my hope on that. Not that things are great in the short run. They often aren't. They don't feel good. A fellow I met years ago who's a writer once said that going on the journey of faith is like getting on a rickety old wooden roller coaster. It doesn't look very safe. It doesn't sound very safe, but you have trust in the operator to get you to the end safely. And that's the kind of safely, he says, faith is about, that we arrive safely at the end. And therefore, we should have hope. Well, hope is often hard to come by at times, especially in difficult times. Like the times we've been through and are going through with the pandemic. Every time we think it's starting to clear up, it flares up again. It seems to be pretty wicked stuff, fairly adaptable. Just flares up and changes. We have personal things. It's a little hard to have hope when I came out and found Nancy calling for me, she was sitting up by that time, but you know how head wounds are, and she was completely covered in blood, so it looked much worse than it was when I first saw her. Hard to have hope. And yet there's something that in us, I believe it's God created, the calls to hope. As many of you know, I love poetry, and of course, a poem about hope that always comes to my mind is the one by Emily Dickinson, that hope is the thing with feathers, the perches in the soul, and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it on the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Hope didn't ask anything. It just comes forth and springs forth. And I thought, well, in some ways, hope is like the thing with feathers. There was a little thing like with feathers hopping across the driveway the other day when I was mowing. It had evidently gotten blown out of the tree by the wind and was slightly damaged, and so I went and picked it up and moved it to the other side of the driveway. And I thought how fragile it was, this little thing with feathers. I had to hold it gently, firmly, but gently, firmly because it wanted to get away. And I was trying to talk softly to it and carry it across and set it down where it'd be safe, where I'd already mowed on that side. I kept thinking of this thing. And so for me, hope is often the thing that perches in the soul and sings a tune without words. And the tune without words is saying trust. Trusting God, who called the world, the universe into being with words out of things unseen. And so why do I expect to see and understand everything? Faith is mystery. Isn't necessarily meant to be understood. When I was young and at ESR, I loved to talk about theological stuff and ideas and debate them. And the older I get, the less I care about those theological ideas. And Niebuhr and Hans Kung and all these people I studied, I think they had a lot to offer. But it was still just humans trying to make sense of that which in some ways is inexplainable, and trying to make it normative when it's not normative. It is, God is so big, faith is so big, and therein is trust. Also, in the last week, I read another poem about hope that a friend of mine had posted. And at first it really set me on edge. But I decided, no, there's some truth to it too. And maybe some people experience hope more like this. And it said, the title of this one is, Hope is not a bird, Emily, it's a sewer rat. Now I'm going to change a few words in this just to be a little safer at meeting for worship, but it begins, hope is not the thing with feathers that comes home to roost when you need it most. Hope is an ugly thing with teeth and claws and patchy fur that's seen some crap. It's what thrives in the discards and survives in the ugliest parts of our world. Able to find a way to go in when nothing else can even find a way in. It's the gritty, nasty little carrier of such diseases as optimism, persistence, perseverance, and joy, transmissible as it drags its tail across your path and bites you on the butt. Hope is not some delicate, beautiful bird, Emily. It's a lowly little sewer rat that snorts pesticides like they were lines of coke and still shows up on time to work the next day looking no worse for wear. Like I said, that really set me on edge when I first read it. And then I thought about it more and more. And I thought, you know, sometimes that's right. It finds its way to go on even when nothing else can find its way to go in. It thrives on the discards and survives in the ugliest parts of our world. It carries such diseases as optimism, persistence, perseverance, and joy, and transmits them. And shows up on time the next day looking no worse for wear. Hope, however we experience it. It's not something we dredge up. It just happens. Sometimes springing forth when we least expect it. We were out for a ride in the prairie the other day, and our prairie this year, it's due to be burned in the spring. Have to do that every 3 years just to tamp down the unwanted vegetation and bring new life in. It's pretty thick with brambles right now. Not what we wanted, although, you know, this year those brambles turned out to be blackberry bushes. And they're full, and the birds are loving them. But down low, I noticed the partridge pea were starting to come up. They're little yellow flowers that only get about, a foot tall. And despite all this heaviness and lack of light, they were pushing their way in the spaces where there was. Well, what hope! God's creation rejoices in hope, is seeking the light, reaching up. So regardless of how you experience hope, I commend it to you as either the sewer rat, it's going to wind its way in regardless, or the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. As the writer of Hebrews also says, therefore, since we're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses, that's how the next chapter starts. All these people he's listed. Let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. And I'll close with another poem. Citizen in dark times, agenda in a time of fear. Be not afraid. When things go wrong, do right. Set out by the half-light of the seeker, for the well-lit problem begins to heal. We have not arrived to explain, but to sing. Young idealism ripens into the ethical life. Prune back regret to let faith grow. When you hit rock bottom, dig farther down. Grief is the seed of singing, shame the seed of song. Keep seeing what you are not saying. Plunder your reticence. A songbird guards a twig, its only weapon, a song. And from Hebrews, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, but encouraging one another. We will now transition to our time of unprogrammed worship. We know some friends will be signing off. Blessings on you all. And for those who can stay, please do.
sometimes I find it very hard to figure out what to hope for. So often what I want, what I hope for is what I want, and what I want is my will. The thing that I think would make me happy. But in the long run, so often if I happen to get what I want, it turns out differently. Just not quite as satisfying. You know, it used to be, Dick and I have been together for 40 years or more. And it used to be that I wished that he was exactly perfect, except he could maybe make a few adjustments. And if those adjustments got made, everything would be fabulous. And I would hope for those adjustments. And I learned over time, poor fella, how long it took, that everything I needed, I had. And that what I needed to learn to hope for was unconditional love. I've heard it said that all suffering arises from the resistance to what is. And yet hope is dreaming towards something beyond what is. Where do I go in that hoping? And for me, over time, I've learned that love and surrender to the will of God, is the most beautiful thing I can hope for.
I always liked the poem by Emily Dickinson about hope being like the thing with feathers on. I always kind of felt like maybe it was a little weak somehow, but I never really could put my finger on it until Brent was talking this morning. I like that picture a lot better than I like the picture of hope being like the sewer rat. However, when I look around the world and I see all these evidences of human-caused climate change, and one group of people hating another group of people because we have different life experiences or because we look at the world in a different way, in order to have hope and to believe that all will be well, as the saint of old, Julian of Norwich, said, I have to have the hope that's tenacious like the sewer rat. So I'm not really comfortable with that picture, but I sure appreciate you sharing it this morning, Brent. I'm going to have to live with that for a while. But I think for me, hope does have to have an element of tenacity that isn't there in the Emily Dickinson poem the way I read it.
Well, as we come to our closing time, are there any thoughts that friends would like to share before we say goodbye? It's nice to have Amanda with us in person today.
Glad to be there. Might keep me in your prayers this week. School starts tomorrow. I was gonna say, yeah, pray for our school kids and our school teachers. And my kids start Tuesday as well.
Some of us are hard of hearing and can't hear you all.
Sorry.
So speak up. Lynn didn't hear what you said.
Keep me in your prayers. School starts tomorrow.
That's right. School does start this week, doesn't
Yes.
it? Yes. For your kiddos too?
Yep.
And Drake,
And Drake.
7 o'clock, the bus will pick him up.
Wow. Oh, that's early.
Well, it's good to be with you all. It's nice that you can be with us again, Megan.
Thank you.
So friends, take care, and hopefully we'll see you next week. I think Dan is the worship leader.
Sue Whitesell, I can believe.
Oh, Sue Whitesell's next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a guest speaker.
Yes.
So.
And I don't know if she's going to be in person or whether she's going to Zoom in. Norma has made the arrangements with her, so I don't know which it's going to be.
Well, take care. And we'll hopefully see you next week.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
Say what?
It makes sense.